Hey guys, welcome back to Git Good, a series where I analyze my gameplay to see what I did right, what I did wrong, and how I could have played better. Today, we'll be doing another in-depth breakdown of my movement and positioning mistakes. Although I feel like I have gotten better over the past few months, I still have a lot to improve on. The goal for today is to see how big of an impact these little mistakes are having in my games. These mistakes are generally hard to catch in-game with everything going on, especially as I sometimes act without thinking, but they become plain as day during a VOD review. The actions I take should be done with purpose. I shouldn't be doing things just for the sake of feeling like I need to be acting at all times, because something as simple as just a couple steps in a certain direction are all it takes to separate a good position or movement from a bad one. Since today's analysis is going to be more in-depth than usual, I'm going to let the clips play through first before going back and breaking them down. Try to see if you can't spot the mistakes as I'm making them. In our first clip, we're on our way to fight the last squad.
Recharging my shields. Shields recharging.
I cracked their Bloodhound, which is our cue to go in. I want to use the temporary health advantage we have to cross this gap since their Bloodhound is going to be out of the fight healing for a few seconds. I threw my ult at the roof to crowd control them so they can't poke at us while we move up. Unfortunately, I haven't played Horizon much, so I didn't understand the effective range on it and my ult fell short of where I intended for it to go. Poor execution aside, I didn't even consider that we had a Bangalore on our team who could have easily smoked off the roof, which would have been the better play. I should have asked our Bangalore to use her smokes if she wasn't already going to herself. I follow up my ult with a couple arc stars, but I'm not throwing these with purpose, I'm just yeeting them in the general direction, hoping to get some lucky damage. They end up hitting the outside of this wall, which accomplishes nothing. If I had instead taken a quarter second to aim, I could have put one on the roof and one on the second level, which would have zoned them out nicely. I've talked about efficiency and movement before, but it's still clearly something I need to work on. Right now, my plan is to move from cover to cover until I get to the building. Since I have no intention of shooting back, I should holster my weapon so I can move faster, drawing it only when I need to. By having my gun out when I'm running, I move slower and therefore take more damage for no reason. Climbing the wall here was a huge mistake and is another example of me performing an action without thinking about the consequences. I wanted to hold off any pushes while our Bangalore uses his shield battery, so I instinctively moved up to get a better line of sight. Let's count the number of reasons why I should have died putting myself out of position like this. 1. I have zero information about what I'm climbing into since I broke line of sight while pushing up. Instead of re-peeking first to see if it's safe, I immediately start climbing without knowing what's waiting for me over this ledge. 2. As I'm climbing, I lock myself into an animation that I can't get out of. If this Pathfinder held his angle better, he could have lasered me down before I completed the climb. 3. When I'm on the ground, I can back up just enough so that only my head is exposed while I look at the roof and the second floor. If I need to get back to cover, all I have to do is crouch, making me very hard to hit. When I climb up, I expose my entire body. All Pathfinder has to do is take a couple steps backwards after I climb up, and I won't be able to see any more of him than I did before, so I gain no advantage from putting myself out of position. 4. Not only is there a pathfinder that has line of sight on me, there's a bloodhound on the second level right behind this wall, so I'm potentially exposing myself to 2 people at once. I got lucky that the bloodhound didn't hold his angle for whatever reason, so I didn't get punished nearly as much as I should have. At this point, I want to take the inside of the building to reduce the number of angles we have to consider and to have some cover to play around if we get pushed. We can get dropped on from too many different positions out here, and we have no corners we can use to break line of sight.
We're inside the ring. One less thing to worry about.
As I'm running up, I should once again be considering the efficiency of my movement and holster my weapon to run faster. I could make the argument that I was keeping my gun out to be ready to fight, since a Pathfinder or Bloodhound could drop on us at any moment. However, if that was my plan, then I should have done a much better job with my crosshair placement. By staring at the wall while running, not only am I making it so that I have to flick further to get on any potential targets, I'm also depriving myself of useful information. More than 60% of my screen is just this wall, so it wouldn't be hard for someone to drop right outside of my field of view, taking me by surprise. Having my gun out to be ready for a fight doesn't do me much good if I'm basically running around with my eyes closed.
Recharge.
This is a bad habit I got rid of before, but then I took a break from Apex and it's made its way back. I started healing before I'm actually safe behind cover. The 25 shields I'd gain here from the shield cell would be negated by any damage I'd take getting shot while slow walking through the door. I speed up the rate at which I heal by a second or so, but the potential downside for being out of position for that 1 second saved just isn't worth it.
In my shields.
Now that we're inside, we narrow the directions we can be attacked from to 2 windows and 2 sets of doors, making it less likely for us to get caught off guard. Additionally, we have the center column and the desks we can use for cover if they push in, as well as the doors themselves that we can play around. This is much better than being stuck outside in the open. I can hear someone outside, so I open up the doors to challenge them. Instead of blindly rushing forward though, I should have looked through the doors to see where they were first and if I was going to be fighting just one or both of them at the same time. Knowing where they were also would have let me pre-aim at them so I could get shots off faster. And speaking of blindly rushing forward, that is literally what I do. The moment I opened up the doors, I put myself in a sprint animation and have my crosshairs pointed at the ground. I knew someone was right outside, so I shouldn't have sprinted because it prevents me from shooting right away, and I should have had my crosshairs where I think they might have been instead of at the floor. I also wide peeked the Pathfinder, leaving the safety of the doors. Even though it's not a lot of cover, having the door block the left half of my body is better than nothing. Visually, I don't gain any advantage by stepping out, as I would still be able to see just as much of the Pathfinder from being positioned by the door as I would from the middle of the walkway. One major disadvantage from wide peeking here is that I'm now much more susceptible to being flanked. Their bloodhound scanned us somewhere from the second floor and could drop down somewhere out of my view to the right and beam me while I'm tunnel visioned on the Pathfinder. By being further away from the doors, I make it less likely that I can get back to cover in time if I get flanked. In fact, we see the bloodhound do exactly that. They would have dropped right behind me, and if I was out there for just a second longer, I would have been knocked. Here, I'm rushing to get back into the fight since the bloodhound is pushing my Bangalore. I open up the doors a second before I'm done healing, and the early sound cue alerts the bloodhound and gives them plenty of time to react, ruining whatever element of surprise I might have had. Notice how the bloodhound is already facing me before I even had my weapon drawn. If I didn't rush and waited one more second, I would have been able to get free damage on the bloodhound since they'd still be facing away from me. I'm losing the duel very badly, but I managed to get back to cover in time. I almost throw the game by re-peeking here since I only had 20 HP left. I got very lucky that I didn't get knocked. Again, this is a result of me trying to rush things. If I learn to be calmer and more collected, these fights will go much more smoothly.
Shields recharging.
Here, we've identified that the 3 other teams are scattered in an arc outside the next circle, so we took this position early to try to hold them off and force them to fight each other as they rotate in. Continuously moving makes it harder for someone to hit you, which is great when you're actually being shot at. However, I am under no pressure here. I'm in good cover, so I only have to worry about what's in front of me. This Octane hasn't started firing yet, so I'm preemptively dodging just because it's been ingrained in my brain that I should always be moving. This extra movement combined with the speed boost from Bloodhound's ult causes me to miss more shots than I should have against a target that's running at me in a straight line. This isn't to say that I should stand still more while shooting, but rather I should learn to recognize when I can get damage in for free and learn to take advantage of it. This is a bit of a harsh example because there wasn't very much time for me to react, but in keeping with today's theme of having purposeful actions, I wanted to point it out so I can be more conscious of it in the future. We start falling back because we don't want to end up being sandwiched by the teams pushing forward.
I downed the hostile.
I did a few things wrong here. First, look at my movement. I'm actively being shot at, so now would be the time to strafe dodge. Instead, I'm just walking forward and to the left, making myself easy to hit since I'm long strafing in one direction. Second, by walking forward, I move away from my closest piece of cover, the box behind me, and I'm now completely in the open. Third, I'm going deeper into an enemy team. I saw the Mirage back here, so I'm walking into a 1v2 when my shields are low and none of them are close to being knocked. Fourth, we weren't under any pressure yet, but by pushing up, I got them to focus on us, which let the last squad rotate for free. Turning around here to scan is a big misprioritization of what's important. I'm low on health, so I need to be focused on surviving at all costs. Scanning locks me into an animation and makes me move slower, and I nearly pay the price for it. If I really wanted to scan to see if we're being pushed, I could have easily done it after I got to cover. I pulled out this heat shield in accident, so there's not much to say about that. Once again, I push up when I shouldn't have. There wasn't a call that the Mirage was low or anything, I just can't seem to let go of my W key. I'm so tunnel visioned that I don't notice we're being flanked by the last squad or Bangalore's voice line that we're being attacked by someone else. That being said, there isn't much we can do to salvage the situation since the last squad got to flank us for free. At this point, I think the best we could have done was throw a couple grenades down to zone people out and pray to the Apex gods that the last team focuses the Mirage first instead of us. Ideally, I would have never overextended in the first place, which would have let us keep cutting them back as the other two squads fought each other while pushing up. In the last clip, we're on our way to third party a fight.
Shields recharging.
Recharging shields.
Anyone need a pick me up? Frag grenade!
Look out, grenade.
Reloading.
Giving my shields a recharge.
Recharging my shield.
I'm getting beamed and I didn't do as much damage to them as they did to me, so I look for an armor swap since it's faster than healing in case they push. Unfortunately, the armor was empty. I threw my gravity lift here to zone them out while we heal, but I messed it up since I haven't played Horizon much. I'm not sure why I checked this box again. I should be moving up to help instead of looking to loot. I shouldn't have shot down the Horizon ult here. They got zero value from it, and if anything, they've zoned themselves out from pushing on that side. Instead of wasting time and ammo shooting it down, I should be rotating to the right to flank them and to make sure that we don't get flanked ourselves. Also, pay attention to my movement and positioning here. I'm standing in the open, moving in a straight line backwards while shooting. If someone did flank us, I'd be an easy target. My awareness eventually catches up and I fix my positioning and get vision on the right so I can see if I'm being flanked. Ideally, this is where I should have been positioned all along, as I have a better view of the battlefield and I can use the building for cover or get on the roof for high ground. Since they didn't seem to be rotating, I moved to flank myself and end up in an aim duel with their Loba. I end up long strafing here, walking only to my left for a long time until line of sight is broken. In this situation, I'm okay with the long strafe as the Loba wasn't landing many shots. If she did have better accuracy there, I'd want to react by breaking up my strafe pattern and focus on dodging more. As I mentioned in the second clip, learning when you can get damage in for free is invaluable. If you're not taking damage, there's no point in dodging around erratically, throwing off your aim when you can optimize your movement for accuracy instead to win an aim duel. I push up since the Loba is low. However, as soon as I saw the inside of this building was empty, I should have taken the roof. I have no vision of what's happening on the other side of this wall, other than what I can see through this little door. Maybe the Loba is teleporting away, or she ran off in a direction that I don't have line of sight on, or in this case, the horizon suddenly joins the fight. I'm literally blind rushing forward right now because I have no information on how the enemy team is positioned. Even if I did manage to take the inside, what if I got to the door and the Loba body blocked it while the horizon caught up? Suddenly I'm facing a 1v2 and I don't have any place I can take cover inside if they break the door and start shooting at me. Tactically, running inside was a horrible play. Their horizon then proceeds to wreck me. Let's take a look at why. First, she's already established an angle here and is looking for targets. She's not sprinting around or anything, she's aiming down sights looking into the building, which allows her to pre-fire at me as soon as she sees that I'm about to round the corner. If I had vision on her, I would have been able to punish her for standing in the open like that, but because I'm positioned poorly, I end up reacting late and running to a wall of bullets instead. Second, my initial reaction is to return fire, which is a big no-no against somebody who already has their aim established and is in the process of beaming you down. What I'm doing here is just hoping their aim is so bad that I can take this duel when they already have a major head start. I'm also hoping that my aim is going to be on point and that I don't whiff a bunch of shots. This is a prime example of an ego play and it won't work against better players. Even if this was the low health Loba who I originally thought it was, so what? I don't want to give up damage for free if I can avoid it, and if she's shooting then it means she's not healing, so she'll still be low when I get a better angle to re-challenge her. If I take damage for free right now, I'm just leveling the playing field by throwing away our health advantage. What I should have done was continue crossing this gap and get to cover using the wall to my right, minimizing the damage I take while my Pathfinder gets caught up to help. If they try to rush me, I'll hear it and can make a run for it while their guns are down from sprinting. Third, I am trying to get back to cover, but I'm going for the wall behind me. In doing so, I walk backwards in a straight line, essentially making me a standing target from the horizon's perspective. Erratic dodging would have been helpful here, even if it means that it would have taken me longer to get back to the wall behind me, because fewer shots would have landed and I would have taken less damage. I shouldn't have bothered initiating a battery here, as there's no world where I get this off in time. I can see the horizon rushing at me plain as day, so I should have been thinking about the rotations I can make rather than trying to heal in an unsafe spot.
Charging my shield.
Sliding off this roof was an accident. I didn't mean to do that. I got lucky that the Loba didn't open the door and knock me. I opted to kick this door down because I wanted to force these guys to consider multiple angles so my Pathfinder isn't taking a 1v2 for no reason. With the door down, the Pathfinder and I will either have our respective 1v1s, or one of us will get in damage for free as the other gets collapsed on. After I knock the Loba, I make the mistake of rushing inside to challenge the horizon when I could have easily done so from outside this doorway. If I stay outside, I can break line of sight just by walking left or right to avoid taking damage. Since I'm using a Mastiff, I would be best off jiggle peeking, popping out of cover just long enough to take a shot and getting back into cover during the rechamber animation. It's also easier for me to track the horizon aim-wise from outside, as I only have to move my crosshair a small amount to cover all possible angles she can take. In contrast, on the inside I have to focus so much more on dodging to avoid damage since I have no cover. This in of itself already makes it harder to aim, but on top of that, I also have to flick my crosshair across wider angles since the target is closer. In the moment, I think I'm making the game easier by rushing up and making the target larger, but in reality, I'm making things much more mechanically difficult compared to just hanging back and shooting. I need to get out of the habit of always wanting to barrel stuff people, as I oftentimes put myself in worse positions to do so. Getting closer doesn't always make hitting targets easier, especially if they're actively dodging you. Anyway, that about wraps it up for this video. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time.